The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, I'm Carl Seidel, host of The People's View. The People's View is a show sponsored by the Nashua Republican City Committee. The committee meets every second Thursday at the Crown Plaza. And if you want to contact us, we have a website, nashuagop.org. And at the end of the show, you'll see some contact phone numbers or email addresses that you may want to send us your comments and recommendations. Thank you for listening in.
Welcome to The People's View, a program dedicated to discussing local, state, and national issues and their effect on the American people. The People's View provides a platform for state representatives and national figures to present their viewpoint. Whether it's social, economic, or financial topics, you'll hear it on The People's View.
Hello, and again, welcome to The People's View. Today we're going to do something different. I brought somebody back, an old face that you're familiar with, Pete Silva.
Hey, Carl,
Pete,
how are you?
welcome aboard again. And today we're going to talk about you and I both running now. You're running again.
As I just found out. Wasn't planning on it, but maybe the stars are right this time.
Yeah, well, I hope so. We enjoyed being up there together, and we have a lot to talk about, why both of us are still running. I think the state needs somebody who's going to control the money. We're going to look at it and going to do a budget the right way, find out how much is coming in, and then you decide how much you can spend. And we're going to have some interaction with the federal government, too, with some of their problems that I hope we can solve by electing a few people who think the same way we do. So I hope all our listeners today are getting their friends and neighbors that think likewise to go and come to the vote, the ballots.
Yeah, I mean, again, like always, that's going to be the key to turnout. Mm-hmm. And hopefully people turn out that actually are eligible to vote. There's some question that, especially with today's article in the Union Leader with Gardner, Secretary of State, for those who don't know, that I always thought when our beginning terms, remember, he was saying there was no voter fraud. Right. I think, would you say there's like one person?
They decided, yeah, a couple of months ago that there was one guy that had voted both in Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Now, I think there were a lot more complaints. As you and I both know, we ran across several of them here in Nashua.
My own election, the special election I had, the one I ran against had a person staying in their house living in New Jersey that voted for Obama.
Yeah.
So things like that have to stop. And we had, for the people who don't know, we had over 9,000 same-day registers in Nashua alone, right. Almost 1,000 per ward. Mm-hmm. And something's just not right. Mm-hmm. And I think that, you know, we need to button that up a little bit more. And I was talking to someone earlier, if you remember the vote, when we tried to override the veto for the voter ID, not one Democrat voted to override it, not one. And so people understand, in other words, the governor vetoed it, so we had to override it in order to put in voter ID. So there's things like that that I just don't, to me, they haven't changed, and it's just fundamental logic that you should show an ID to vote. I mean, please.
Right. They did a sampling of all those people that voted on the last day by sending them postcards. They must have gotten back a lot that not
there
at this address.
I don't know the number.
But we don't see any of those statistics. And I think just prosecuting one person makes it a whole laughing matter.
And see, that's the one thing, too, about being, when you're back in, when you're inside, you know, as you know, we have access to that stuff. That's one of the beauties about being a representative, that and all the money that you make. But you can go get those stats. They have to give them to us. It might take a little time, but they do. I know there's other things I researched in the past, and they were great about, for the workload they have, handling 400 people, it was pretty expedient. I don't remember what it was I was looking for. It was my first term, though.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, it's like that. We don't get enough information back, and people don't ask enough questions. I think one of the things both of us were doing while we were up there was looking to see whether some of the agencies were really doing their job. If they had a program, was the program delivering on its objectives? Was it done on time? And they refused to try to do that. And I don't think they even followed their own auditing reports that recommended changes in the processes that they used.
yeah, I think like anything else, it's like any business or any division of a business. There's good ones or the ones that are run well, and there's ones that aren't run so well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's right to what you're saying. A key thing is to monitor some of these agencies, and if they're not performing, we should get rid of them, to give the money to the people that really need it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm going through a personal thing right now with special needs with my youngest son that I've been exposed to a lot of stuff over the past year that if I get in there, I'm going to use that to really, I can remember you went to it. The very first meeting I went to was at
The redress, you mean?
no, as it was someone's house where there was a bunch of autistic kids, and you know when the things end at 21, these people are on their own.
Yeah.
My wife's a private duty nurse and a school nurse, and she takes care of mostly, you know, people like that that really do need the help. Instead of you know, some of the bills we try to pass here, like legalizing marijuana, which they did in Colorado and they did in Washington State. And now they tried to, last week I saw in the news, they're trying to pass a bill that they can use their EBT cards to buy pot now.
Oh, really?
Because if they can buy cigarettes and booze, why can't they buy pot? See, those are the things that I think people don't see when they make laws like this and you open Pandora's box. You know, if we're paying for people to buy pot and cigarettes and booze, which that lady that got fired for out in the Peterborough area.
Yeah, refusing to
do it.
Sure.
And it just can't, we can't do it anymore. It doesn't make sense. And that's what the Democrats continue to do, is they make it seem like they're the party who cares. Well, why are more people on welfare than ever in the history of the country right now? And you see that statistic a couple weeks ago? We spent, since I believe 1940, $22 trillion in the welfare system.
Well,
What's it doing?
Yeah.
Are the kids smarter? Are they better educated? No. I mean, if you raise generations of people that are used to just living off the system, they may not, you know, have the grand houses and things like that, but if you get some people that just, if they have a dwelling and they have food and they have the cable TV and now they can go get cigarettes and beer, there's no incentive. And that's what they've done. They've just sucked the will out of them and they've dumbed them down. Yeah, and people have to start saying it. That's why my license plate is that NPC thing, because enough's enough.
Yeah.
You can't be mean about it. You can't be bigoted about it or racist about it, but you can be honest.
It seems like they think just by spending money on something, you're going to cure it. It's going to make everybody feel good and do better, but there's no incentive to do any better.
No, it's almost like heroin. They become addicted.
Yeah.
You know, one of the social workers I'm dealing with right now, she's been doing it for 35 years. And she tells me, like, flat out, self-proclaimed liberal. And I've only met her 3 times. And, like, by the 3rd time, she's already starting to see some of the things I would bring out to her from my legislative experience. What do you mean? Like, she didn't know about the voter ID thing.
Really?
She had no clue. And I said, you know, your party, not one of them voted for that. You think that's right? Of course she doesn't. Because when you talk to someone individually and they didn't drink the Kool-Aid and they just say, oh, yeah, what about the 85-year-old woman that, you know, hasn't driven in 20 years? And I can remember at the last primary I was at, not the one we just had, the one in 2012, I can remember the guy that was helping Carl Andre, a friend of his. I was bored. And I said, you know what? Let's have a debate. All right, what do you guys want to debate about? And I said, how about let's start with voter ID? And he started the mantra. I said, well, first of all, part of the bill is they're going to take your picture for you for free. When you show up, you don't have it, they're going to give it to you. They are? He didn't even know that. He's just arguing all the, you know, the same old. And so what John Sununu said in that first, in a 2008 election or 10 election, whatever one it was, when he said, you know, you got to talk, talk, talk. That's so true. It can't just be us. The neighbors have to talk to other neighbors. You can't be afraid to broach the subjects. You got to let them know. Find a couple of facts. You know, you and I have talked about this several times. When we go, you focus more on the fiscal issues, I'm more on the social issues. I think excite me more, that's all. That's why my wife doesn't let me touch the checkbook. I'm not good at it. But, you know, it takes all kinds to do it.
Yeah.
But then, if I tried to really become an expert on the financial stuff, I probably wouldn't do as well on the social stuff that I could do.
Yeah.
But we need our neighbors and friends to tell their neighbors and friends. That, do you realize what just happened? Like, go down the list. There's plenty of things to pick on and see what's there.
You know, one of the things I'm doing when I go around, talk to the voters, knock on doors, asking them if they want us to come to maybe a small gathering of maybe a dozen or so people. And, you know, a little meet and greet. And we'd bring along a couple of the other candidates that they might not see. I think, well, the reason we're on this program is to try to educate more people about what's happening out there. And I think that they have to meet some of these candidates who know something. And I think when we were in there in 2010 to 12, we accomplished a lot. We were demonized for it. Everybody still says that we caused, you know, all sorts of problems. Well, I haven't heard of any real problems. I mean, we had to live within the budget, and they still don't live within this year's budget.
Right.
So they haven't learned yet.
Yeah, they have a way of twisting things around. Again, we know that there's a bunch of different reasons with the budget. You know, a lot of these union salaries and pensions that we're going to be accountable for eventually. They twist that around as that you don't like cops, you don't like firemen. No, that's not true. But at the end, like anything else, in normal life, when you run out of money, that's it. So you'd have to face the reality that someday we have this unfunded liability we just can't meet.
We're seeing that over in Europe, where some of the countries have to cut back because they're not able to tax anymore. They got an awful high tax rate.
Well, you see it all around you, and every other country that's done it has failed. But yet, for some reason, and it's not even really the Democrats; it's the media that controls them, that won't tell the facts of what's going on. For some reason, though, they think that it won't happen to us. You know, that's the definition of insanity, right?
Well,
Same thing over and over.
They keep, hoping for a different result. They keep telling everybody that those rich people are the ones that are going to be able to handle it all. Well, the rich people are rich because they have used their money right, for the most part. And they've done things that added to our economy. The growth of our country depends on some of those people who come up with the ideas. The Apples, the Microsofts, some of the people at BAE here who have done some terrific things on protecting us by putting our soldiers at, protecting them.
But again, it's the mantra. They're just all going to take everything from you and keep it all. And if they didn't make their company successful, these other people wouldn't have jobs directly or indirectly from that company. You know, everyone's doing something that is producing something if you're working. You know, that's the whole thing.
Well, I think that's what you and I were both looking at, too, when we ran in 2010. We wanted to expand the tax base by making this state more inviting to other companies, to growing like we had way back when, in the early 2000s, that we had lots of companies coming in, but a lot of them have left.
Oh, what do we rank now for corporate
in the 30s
tax?
Someplace.
Like 38 or something like that? Being bad number. And so why would you? You know, if you have to, we have to fight not only the taxes here, but you also have the environment where you have, cold winters with heat and stuff like that. So to attract a good company, you got to make it attractive tax-wise. And how people don't get that. It's not that they're not being told, because all the unions, the teachers aren't going to tell them in school. Look at the teachers union. It goes right down the line. So the media doesn't do it. They're in the tank for them, for all the unions. And as you know, I'm a Rick Perry fan. Again, look at the doctors they're attracting. He's a right-to-work state. They single-handedly produced over 50% of the new jobs in the country that were grown, which aren't a lot anyway, where the numbers are, if I even believe them. But it's largely upon their taxing system and the right to work.
Yeah.
And then they went one step further, because it's near and dear to my heart, which I've talked a million times about, is tort reform. They're attracting more doctors and medical people to go down there because their malpractice insurance is half.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah, as you know, I started up a company down there, and it is an easy area to get along with, easy regulations, really straightforward. And another thing they do down there besides that, on the voting problem, they had voter ID there, and they had early voting. Like 2 weeks before the regular election, you could come into a town hall or something and cast your vote, which was, you didn't have any last-minute registration or anything like that. So they had a number of things down there. It was very inviting to people in general to live there and businesses to start up there.
It's just common sense.
Besides, they had a lot of money down there, too.
Well, that's why. They get a little thing called oil, too.
Yeah.
But, you know, one of the other things that when I got to know Governor Perry, and I couldn't believe this, but they're the 10th largest economy in the free world, that one state. Well, down there, their legislative body is, I think it's 175.
Yeah.
But they meet every other year.
Right.
And one of the reasons I was trying to get back in again, until 1976, we used to meet every other year. And so guys like me don't feel the pressure of having a job if they could meet every other year and have afternoon sessions.
Yeah.
The citizens could go to the hearings, which is just as important. You know, all the Democrats don't care because they don't work anyway. So anyway, but us working Republicans would be able to go there and A, legislate, and also B, as citizens, make our voice heard. And if I could go to my boss and I could say to my boss, look, I'm thinking of running, because I get paid out of Massachusetts. We do have the state of Maine, but I don't have anything in New Hampshire, which is weird. We have one product. But I could go to my boss comfortably and say, you know what, every other year, providing I get elected every time, I'm going to need Wednesdays off and get out early on Wednesdays and maybe on Mondays for committee for 4 months. Yeah, as long as you don't interfere with, like in my job, which he wouldn't care. But when I tell him I have to take every Monday and every Wednesday off for 4 months a year for 2 years.
That's a lot, yeah.
You can't, why would he say yes to that?
Yeah.
Unless I was a lobbyist, right? Unless I had a special interest and I was trying to support that, but that's rare, you know that. That's the thing. I really wanted to fight to do that, to get it back to that, because I think that, there's 400 people up there. There's really 50 doing anything of any significance. And the rest are just there for numbers. And do we need 27 reps in Nashua? I don't think you're going to get to change the Constitution like that. The every other year thing, that's not constitutional, which I never really realized until I looked into it last term. It's just rules. Just a change of rules. And I guarantee you both sides, when we would put that in effect. As a matter of fact, I'd be curious to see a vote on that. Why would a Democrat go against that? Yeah. It's good for them too. If they're going to go up there and again, if you have a job, that's why they do look at the town hall. Those aldermen are paid. They meet at night. Yeah. Right. I'm not even saying nighttime. And the other thing it would really do, Carl, is there's a lot of frivolous bills. Oh, yeah. We wouldn't have to vote on the state color as many times, and Greek marbles, and, I mean, the mock parrots, and that's, so that may sound like a little thing, but it's really not, because that's who affects everything as the legislators.
Yeah, if you're limited to time, you work a little bit harder to work it through quickly. You don't let it just sit around. A lot of stuff that we postpone because we don't want to push for a decision.
Well, I remember my last term, there was one day I had 5 bills that I had to introduce. For the folks who don't know, your bill has to be introduced by somebody. So these people, some people had 60, 70 bills that they'd put in. So they were in 2 different committees at once, or 3.
Yeah.
And so
short period of time.
I drew the short straw. I was on the end of the table, and I had to get up there and introduce a bill that, first of all, as legislators, we get a 1-page, 2-page thing usually to read on this bill. So we don't really know.
Yeah, it's not a complete bill.
And you're not there to ask questions if you sponsored it.
Right.
So the bill's chance of getting out of committee is almost 0. And so we cut down a lot of that stuff if they wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, maybe we'd be able to let the administration go and do some of the changes that we're trying to implement.
There you go.
I mean, there's a lot of things that you really have to follow through on to make sure that they work on it.
Well, the first part of the term, anyways, is the budget.
Right.
Before you leave there and the gavel falls in the last day of session in the first half of the term, the budget is done. That's the biggest thing. Everything else comes out of the budget, right?
That's right.
No matter what it is. So they could, if Texas can do it.
Oh yeah.
I think we could do it here.
No, I was very comfortable the way they ran their state legislature, and I think you're right. We ought to try some of those ideas. We don't have to be that independent.
Well, I said to Gardner when I saw him when I went to sign up, he agrees. I mean, he was there long enough to remember 1976, and he said it was 10 times better. You had half the garbage bills that you got, which takes, again, for the citizens who don't know, those legislative service people, they got to handle 400 people with no limit, and we're still the only state in the country that hears every single bill, or every bill has a right to a hearing. No one else does that. I'm not saying I would limit that, because if I get the first thing, you'd limit it automatically. You know, that I don't think it's meant to drown people out, but some of it, I mean, how many times you're sitting, are you kidding me? No way. And most of those things, let's face it, don't even make they're on the consent calendar, and they just go right through, either yay or nay, but still, not at the committee level. Yeah. The committee's got to hear the whole thing. So there's things you could do.
Well, we have about 6 minutes left here, and maybe we ought to touch on a few other things that I know I'm concerned with, and I think you'd be too. Education is one of them. The state is coming down with Common Core, and I think we need more local control. How do you feel on that?
I'm a huge independent. I mean, I've been, for the longest time, I'm still a voucher guy. I don't have any faith whatsoever in the public school system, the way that it's set up. You know, any business needs competition. When you're a beast like that, if all of a sudden now I take that, which I believe is $17,000 per student that they're granted, if that money comes out of them and it goes to one of these charter schools that are around, all of a sudden they're going to start looking for the teachers that are doing a better job. And it's just common sense. I forget who it was that was talking, you know, I'm sure it was on Fox News, because they wouldn't say it anywhere else, but look at what it's done to the African-American community.
Oh, yeah?
By not having the ability to have charter schools. And to watch that Waiting for Superman, the thing will make you cry.
Well, I think competition is right, and this thing about the scholarships, they're trying to get it declared unconstitutional just because it might include somebody going to parochial schools. I mean, federally, you can give money to charities, whether it's religious or not, and they deduct that from your income. And so it shouldn't, it shouldn't be unconstitutional, because that's not being giving directly to the schools. It's indirectly. And it's something that I think we have to, competition is what we need, whether it's homeschooling, charter schools, religious parochial schools, or private schools. I think you do need that to compete with it.
I know in the last campaign, there was several of my neighbors who are dyed-in-the-wool Democrats, and that issue alone made them look into, because Mangiapudi was on the school board, they have voting records of her, and those issues alone, not to be able to use their money to go to charter school, or have, the support they need, It was a big thing for them. And again, who knows about it? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you know, you're talking too about evaluating the teacher's capability. I think that what I read in the paper yesterday surprised the heck out of me. They are trying to implement a new way of evaluating the teachers. The principal and the assistant principal are going to sit in the classrooms and listen to them 6 times a year.
Ooh.
Do you realize that? They got really, now somebody is going to look and see what they do. What were they doing before?
Well, I mean, even that, though, when they do that, pardon me if I'm skeptical, but are they really going to turn on their own? Because that's what they're doing. You know, what's that thing in New York, the rubber room?
Yeah.
Those people actually get caught doing
that's
stuff.
right, yeah.
They're still getting paid.
Yeah, can't fire them.
So the real crux of the problem is the union. It has to go away. And once it does, or if you introduce, again, competition first, once you do, then guess what? The whole game changes. I mean, I took my son from fairgrounds and put him in the 7th grade, which was a mistake as it turned out. But to see the difference of what they were learning in the 7th grade and what they're doing at fairgrounds, you got to be, it's a joke.
Really?
It's an absolute, it's not even the same league. Now, unfortunately, a place like Nashua Catholic doesn't have a brand new gym or things like that because they're not getting the, you know, all the tax money. But I would so much rather give them the money than, because these kids are getting 3 hours of homework a night, legitimately. Legitimately.
Yeah. And they don't get that, as you say, they don't get what the schools get, but the schools always say, well, we're losing all that money. Well, you're not losing all that money.
It's like everything else the liberals do. Yeah. You're just taking the money and just feeding this big beast, and they just gobble it up and eat more.
So what else do you think that, that has to be changed up there? I mean, we had a lot of ideas.
Well, I think that, you know, we're still, unfortunately, a ways away from the right to work issue because, again, we have a lot of Republicans that are in there with union jobs. And the other thing that I would do is, which we could do instantly, is we fill out those ethic forms. If that's not a conflict of interest, that I'm a union worker and I'm voting on the budget, I want to pass a House rule that no union employee from the state of New Hampshire, whether it be them or a family member, like a spouse, can vote on anything budget related. So
well, it would be the unions that get work for companies that get money from
public unions. Public unions. Public unions. I should be specific about that. Yeah. There's no reason that firemen should be voting on their pensions. I'm sorry. Policemen should be voting on their pensions like that. How are they going to vote? Yeah. Are they really going to? And then you saw that. We lost that vote because of 35 or 36 Republicans. I had it because I was the whip at the time, that we could not budge. And that's why. They're not going to do that. So they can vote on everything else.
Well, if we can get Walt Haverstein in, I think that he will have this unfunded liability problem that he's going to attack. That'll be interesting to see how they get out to the funds.
Yeah, and you know what? People get mad at him, but it's like they say, the truth hurts. Yeah. You know, somebody's got to be the big boy and girl and wear the big boy pants.
Well, Pete, we ran out of time, but maybe we should do this once more before the election.
You never know.
Who knows? But
that'd be good.
Thank you for listening in.
Thanks, Carl.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.